Craig, welcome back to the studio, my friend. It's great having you in town for the day. Give the audience and myself another brief rundown of like what all it is that you do and a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah, absolutely. So my main thing right now is running the Optimal business, which is my online coaching business for helping men to optimize their health as a foundation to improve their lives. So I talk about all things health and wellness and try to help them through the challenges that come up along the way. So that's my main focus, and a lot of the ways that I try to embody that is living a life aligned with total wellness. So trying to have like a balanced life in a sense, if you will, and obviously optimizing my own health. So practicing proper nutrition, getting great exercise and training for Muay Thai and stuff like that. And also recovery. So just trying to prioritize those things to embody kind of the things that I preach and show what is possible if you do take those right steps.
Awesome, man. I think that leads very well directly into kind of the first topic of debate that I want to bring up, and that's kind of just masculinity at a macro level.
Yeah.
What would you define masculinity as, or what does that frame of masculinity look like? What are some of the attributes?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's definitely up for debate, and a lot of times can be like misconstrued in terms of now popularized the toxic side of masculinity, which I think is like comical, because to me there's like toxic sides of anything, or like doing too much of anything, and to me there needs to be a proper balance of the polarity through masculine and feminine to create that unity that the world needs, in a sense. So if you draw down all the masculine power and energy, then I don't think that the feminine would be as pleased, if you will, or they would try to compensate by becoming more masculine in a way that isn't self-serving to them either. So I think you need to have the balance of having that optimized masculinity and the optimized femininity, and that can be in various forms and various structures, if you will. But I think that having those in the right way and having like temperance or balance with your masculinity, so you are, confident but not cocky, and that sort of thing. So you have the masculine power, but you know how to control it and use it in a sense that it is beneficial. You're using it to protect, not to harm, and stuff like that. So I think that's part of at least a good spot to start when it comes to that discussion. So having some virtues and some values that kind of guide your intentions as a man and as you develop is going to be key.
I absolutely agree with everything that you just said. And I also, one thing that I very frequently repeat when having conversations like this is, and I'm glad you mentioned the virtue component of it and the humility component, is something for men to remember, and that I think that men need to understand, is that there is no virtue in refraining from doing that which you are incapable of.
Yeah, it reminds me of a quote, or just the idea that like your loyalty is only tested by the amount of options you have. So you can't like relay this this virtue of saying like, oh, I don't do bad things, or like if I was in this person's situation with all this money, I would only do good things. It's like you need to actually, you have money or have a sense of like status or have, options, whether that's like relationally or options for like where to work, to actually like show your loyalty. Or like if you're, an athlete or something, or working in a job and you have more options to go work wherever, then I think it shows loyalty to stick to like who you're working with and that sort of thing. But loyalty could be a virtue, right? So that's just an example of like, I don't know, a lot of times people will try to show virtue, but they don't have many options, or show loyalty without options. But like if you actually develop yourself to a point where you do have options, then you can start to display that virtue.
I absolutely agree with that as well. And I think that a lot of times, I think that how that relates with physicality as a man plays a very large role. Something I also preach to young men is like, you need to become dangerous.
Yeah.
You need to be not violent necessarily, but you need to be capable of violence.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, there is no virtue in refraining from violence.
Right.
And
right.
I think that like that's where the true virtue is built, is in those situations where you know you are capable of it if it comes to that,
mm-hmm.
but that you are going to take every route possible to avoid that confrontation in the event that you can.
Yeah. I think a lot of it goes back to like, how does it impact others in a sense? Like, you can be toxic and take advantage of your masculine gifts or your masculine skills that you have acquired. Or you can be more selfless with those acts and even like gain these virtues and these skills by trying to improve the lives of others, whether that's protecting others or encouraging and mentoring or just learning and taking the advice from your mentors and that sort of thing. I think it's important to have that kind of distinction there. And, back to virtue, just trying to gain those virtues of like honor or courage or, develop your wisdom, but not always in a self-serving way or in a detrimental way to society if you're trying to like build yourself up, but build yourself up in a way that helps to benefit others.
Absolutely. What are when it comes to physicality? So I know you're involved in some level of fight training. So talk to me a little bit more about what that experience has been like. And you haven't been at it for that awful long, have you? You're fairly new.
Yeah, I'm definitely new to it. I really enjoy it, and I tend to kind of jump into things and kind of go all out at them. So like, I haven't been training that long, but I think I've been training very consistently for the most part. So having that consistent practice helps me to internalize the idea of like, yeah, I can be a good fighter as long as I continue to show up and compete with other good fighters at my gym and stuff like that. But it's been transformative for me. It's helped me learn a lot more about self-discipline and hard work and just these like basic principles that people, I feel like people know, but they almost don't believe in themselves enough to put them into use, or like they start something and then they lack the consistency to continue on, of like deciding what you want, establishing what you need to give to get what you want, and then committing to putting in the work to get there. And I think if you can follow those 3 steps, you'll be a lot farther ahead, and just committing to that longer term journey of something that you can work on for months or years, as opposed to saying like, hey, if I try this and in 2 weeks I don't like it, I'll stop. It's like, let me actually commit to something that's worthwhile and is going to be challenging. And I am going to have setbacks and I am going to have failures along the way.
What is one realm of your life as of right now that you feel you are lacking in?
It's a great question. I think it's always good to consider those sort of things. Lacking, I tend to just have such an abundance mindset, if I'm being honest. I tend to preach gratitude even if I'm feeling that I could be doing better in some sense. Like, my sense of lacking could be the dream life of somebody else. And I try to just look at things in that perspective. While I do have certain things that I feel like I'm doing better at, it's almost like always a shifting kind of like benchmark, or a shifting kind of like measure, if you will. Like, some days I feel like I'm doing great in something, and other days I'm like, oh, even after a day or two of not being at my optimal level, I'll feel like, all right, maybe I'm down a little bit in that. I think it's kind of like that internal thermostat, if you will, of like, where am I comfortable at? And then how can I continue to improve that across these different measures of like physical wellness, financial wellness, emotional, your social health, or well-being. I tend to preach also intellectual and spiritual wellness. So to me, I try to incorporate a lot of those throughout my week or even throughout my day. And I do have, some that I prioritize at certain times, and some that I, maybe don't allocate as much time to, but I feel like by building up like my foundation of my health, I feel like I'm like honoring or developing myself to a level where I can pursue higher intellectual and spiritual wellness as well.
What exactly do you mean when you say spiritual wellness?
Yeah. Yeah. So to me, it goes back to more of an alignment. So I'm not preaching any certain religion or philosophy or any kind of spiritual practice. I think it's like working with or going into something that works for you and having your own journey to develop that. So for me, it's a lot of like meditation and deep meditation. I try to do those every single day. And it ties in a lot with other practices. Like I feel as though, you know, in a spiritual sense, I'm here to serve others and do that and, you know, live and enjoy a life as a human being. And even like learn things and learn knowledge through philosophy or through experiences that I have that help me to become a better man and to, you know, serve a purposeful or fulfilling life. So to me, those are the kind of things that I'm like meditating on, just being present in the moment while still trying to make the future better.
Let's circle back around to masculinity, and you mentioned, you know, and of course I'm fairly dialed into that space and understand that there's a lot of negative static that revolves around men being men and men wanting to fill out a masculine frame, and there's a lot of tension involved.
Mm-hmm.
And then we even have in the extremes this almost divergence where we have, you know, traditional masculine men, and then we have when men veer from that path, when they are perhaps masculine in certain attributes and character traits, however, they are not humble about it, as you said. They are not virtuous men. They don't have the fundamental character blocks in order to project that frame, that masculine frame properly onto the world and to act in a certain way and to speak in a certain way and to help other people. And I think that what happens is when you have a man who is attempting to project himself as a masculine man and trying to fill that frame, but he's doing so in an improper accordance with that masculine frame or with selfish intent, you end up having this divergence. And that's where we see things like the feminist movement. You know, we see women starting to, when men are no longer filling the masculine role, it forces women to compensate and to play that masculine role. That's why you hear things echoed within that feminist community of like paying their own bills. I'm going to climb the corporate ladder myself. I'm going to focus on providing for myself.
Yeah.
Whereas traditionally, you know, men were, in a mass majority of cases, the sole providers for the household. They provided security and safety. And I think a lot of the negative energy and the negative conversations that go on and come from that feminist viewpoint, that feminist side, is what they're not seeing is that traditional masculine filling the frame properly, justifying the fact that, I guess, we're willing to literally spend our lives in service of you to enable you to do what I believe is the most beautiful job to observe from an external viewpoint, and that is motherhood and the raising of children.
Right.
And I think that softer touch that a woman has, like men I don't believe that we as men were built to raise children with that soft touch that women can. Mm-hmm. I just don't. And there's a reason that the woman is the one that produces that child. And, you know, it's like there's a connection that we'll never have.
Oh yeah. There's definitely things that, that women are incredibly more better and aware. And it's almost hard to put into words how exceptional they are at certain things that men lack. And I think that I think that each gender should be willing to enrich, you know, or tap into that masculinity or femininity in a way that benefits everybody else. And luckily I've had, like, growing up doing sports all the time, I've had a lot of good mentors and been able to see, you know, kind of like you mentioned earlier in that comment or idea of, I've been able to see guys that have, you know, they have it all, if you will, when it comes to like masculinity, but then they take their eye off of like a team goal and they try to do things all for themselves. And it tends to just backfire at the end of the day. Or they're very athletic, but then they think they can, so, they can try to do what they want or whatever they want or eat whatever they want or act however they want and act out. And then it always comes back to bite them. So I think like masculinity obviously can have, or, men are flawed. Humans are flawed. I think that's why problem solving and the challenge of becoming a better human is so enticing, is because humans are flawed. But I think that they can continue to learn and evolve in the right direction towards creating a beautiful world with the help of women as well. But yeah, like just I've seen time and again how good leaders can lead people into becoming, a good team or having like a good group of men. And I think that is so essential. And I've benefited from it time and again. And on the contrary, people that have skills or even, or just trying to, maybe develop some status and, I guess like pull away from, maybe a larger movement, sometimes can be detrimental if they're more of like malicious or self-serving, if you will.
And that also like brings up the thought process to me that I've been having more and more recently as I've seen clips populating my social media feed or whatever is there's also this red pill space. And there are certainly some good fundamentals with this red pill space. I think a lot of where some of their intentions are coming from are solid. However, a massive problem I have is, and there's a very specific podcast that I can think of that I've continued to see clips from that I have a massive issue with, and that is the Fresh and Fit podcast. Okay. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah.
These guys, the issue with that is, and I don't even know if they realize that they're doing it, but they're, basically trying to project to young men that the entire female population is completely in the wrong and they're destroying the world and whatnot. And it's like, listen, like if you show me your process for collecting your sample sizes, because I can tell you firsthand right now, like there are still a lot of really great traditional women out there. There are a lot of women that are embracing their feminine energy and their feminine nature in the proper format. And just because you guys can go out to the streets and like, if you go out, you get what you seek,
right?
Right. And they're seeking these Miami OnlyFans whores. Is what's happening.
Truly. No, I think, there is some truth to what they're saying, but I think they are trying to push a narrative that, makes them look good and is viral and is exciting. It's, I guess like women with traditional values aren't going to get as much clickbait as,
Precisely.
A thirst trap or a massive drama that's going on with, in the internet space, if whether that's celebrities or some kind of like lust, like OnlyFans, stuff like that. But yeah, I think what they're doing is cool. It's just like you're saying, like I'm able to still form my own opinions about it and spot where I disagree with them, which is like they can do what they want. I think it's good for them to put out what they enjoy and what they believe, but not to say that I need to subscribe to it, if you will. Yeah.
I think the concise proponent of, and again, like I said, like I do appreciate some of the things they say. Mm-hmm. And I think the proponent of the masculine narrative that they are completely missing is, let's not forget that part of filling out and projecting a masculine frame onto the world as a man is full accountability.
Right.
It is taking accountability. So in the same suit, you can bring on the women and talk about the state of, degenerate women in the United States. And I would argue that is completely men's fault.
Yeah. I think you have a good point there. Like men aren't being good men or doing things that good men do to allow the women to relax into their feminine state.
I'd be willing to gamble that every one of those, again, those Miami OnlyFans girls, whatever it is that come on that show, that a man in a critical role of their life, probably their father, either was not a good man or not a good father, or he was just simply absent, which again makes him a piss poor man.
Yeah. No, I think I think you're right. Yeah. I think that could be a major, like, I have empathy for those women and just women all around. Like,
Great.
especially the ones that believe in these, you know, it's easy to not read into these toxic masculinity claims as well. Like people get, you know, any famous man probably has shit thrown at his name every other day. But it's like, if you actually read into it, I think I have empathy for both sides. And I think that's what helps me to see things more clearly. It's like, all right, let's not take the headlines at face value. Let's actually read into this. And like, you can hear a headline and, you know, just based on that, think a certain thought. But if you read into it, or you know, have some common sense to a degree on some of these, it's like, all right, let's see like what's really going on. And like, yeah, that's a cool story to share, but there's always more to it than meets the eye, I guess.
So many people don't care to take that additional time and effort to figure out the truth because the fallacy is more entertaining.
Yeah. And people have stuff going on in their own life anyway. They're like, I think that, you know, you could post a headline and two people can take it completely different ways based on the experiences that they've had in their life. I think it's not always like what's out there, but how people perceive it, or, you know, not always like what's being displayed, but how the public persona tries to, you know, create a story and make sense of what's going on, if you will.
Would you consider yourself, like, where do you fall as far as being empathetic and sympathetic in life with your male friend group?
I'm more of a, you do what you want, just don't complain. And like, I'm just to make sure I understand, when you say empathy and sympathy, like, to me, I'm fine with giving tough love, but I know that it needs to be kind of shown more in my actions, as opposed to me just like making a recommendation towards somebody. Like, if I'm not doing something, I need to, you know, display that sort of action before I might recommend it or try to critique somebody else, if you will. Or like, you know, say from experience, or even just if you haven't been in their situation exactly, say like, hey, I realize, you know, how you're feeling. I felt that way before. But really what I found is if you can approach it like this, that might be helpful. Is that?
Well, that's in line with what I'm getting at, for sure. Empathetic. So for myself, I would consider myself an empathetic person with my male friend group. I am not a sympathetic person, though. I never have been. Empathy is, damn, like, I know Craig just suffered a loss at home. I know like shit's or something went wrong. I can have empathy for the situation that you're in. Like, I can say like, I'm going to help him. I'm going to extend a helping hand. I'm going to, hey man, you want to come do this? You want to do that?
Yeah.
I can be empathetic. Sympathetic, if you, because of suffering that loss, you choose to emotionally lash out at the people around you. Again, with that empathy component, I can understand why you're doing it, and I can be empathetic towards that, but I'll never be sympathetic, where if you do it, I'm going to be the first to be like, hey man, like, you got some shit going on. Like, maybe you just need to go clear your fucking head before you open your mouth, type thing.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And I've definitely been, you know, the person to check somebody, be like, are you, like, I've asked somebody before, like, do you want to rephrase that? Cause like, you can tell in their head, they almost they say something and then they'll come back and be like, oh man, like, I didn't mean that. Like, I'm just like emotional, or I'm upset, or, you know, things aren't how I want them to be. But I think like just being like, you want to rephrase that maybe? And then I haven't had a chance, or I haven't had a time where somebody was like, no, like, I'm really upset, or like, you know, at me, it's like, no, this is going on, or whatever. But I'm glad you made that distinction. So yeah, I'm definitely with you in that boat.
I figured.
On the empathy side of things, like having understanding, and, you know, having the equanimity to understand that things go on in people's lives. But the sympathy side is like, yeah, you're probably not going to get much sympathy from me, because I think that I'm hard on myself in a sense, and I don't think that it has been to a detriment to me. I think that if I hold myself to that high standard and don't have much sympathy for myself, then I think it's okay. And I'll have, empathy if something is going wrong or I need to adjust. But to me, I need to keep moving forward. Like if I have responsibilities, then to me, I need to still hold up my end of the bargain, or I need to keep my word. Even if there are things outside of my control that may influence that, I still need to do what I need to do as a man.
Absolutely. It's like the night you're up late working, you're maybe feeling a little sick, you get barely any sleep, you wake up the next day. It's like I can be empathetic with myself of saying like, like this morning run, like, listen, man, like you're running on fumes here.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you can't, that you can avoid the run or you can not do the run. You still have to do the run. I have no sympathy for you.
Right.
But I have empathy, and I also am going to understand if like our average mile pace or kilometer pace is a little lower than usual.
Right.
I can have empathy, but you're still getting out there and you're still putting in your fucking miles.
Absolutely. No, that's so important. I think just like having that consistency to still, keep moving forward, whether those are small steps. I think just it's too easy to fall into temptation and like regress or like fall back into like a downward spiral, if you will. It's so easy to distract yourself from these responsibilities or go and enjoy something while you should be focusing on something, enjoy things, absolutely, but like don't distract yourself from the things that you need to do to move forward and to, become who you know you can be to help the world.
I'm glad you mentioned that, like, your approach to, like, when a buddy of yours is lashing out or something, or somebody's like, you can tell that someone's acting or speaking or acting from a place of emotion.
Right.
And it's so critical. And I think that there's also a way for men to be doing that in their relationships with women as well. That is extremely important. And I actually almost directly reflect your approach. Just my terminology is a little different. Like you're like you want to repeat that? It's like, hey man, I'm gonna give you a second chance here. Like strike one.
No, truly.
Strike one, buddy. Yeah. I think that is critical because again, it shows that empathy of like, hey man, listen, like we all, like our adrenaline all spikes, like we all get a little fired up sometimes and we say some shit we don't mean. Right. And like I'm gonna give you a chance to just like reacclimate that, or otherwise like we either need to like have a fist fight and duke this out and then return to being brothers, or we need to just walk away from each other for a second.
Right.
Like, even with women, men, it's all the same to me. It's not the same, but my approach to that is the same. And women, I find
with
more
any
often, any relationship, women more often than men come from that place of emotion. And that's one of the things that makes femininity a beautiful thing is they can bring that emotion that maybe men lack in certain avenues of their life.
I agree.
They can bring that emotional construct to the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you need to just be grounded in like who you are and have some emotional stability in those situations. Like to me, a lot of times, like I don't think people that I may be arguing with really need like to fight. Like they don't want to fight me. They're just like upset. Like buddy probably needs a hug. He wants to go do something fun and get his mind off the things that are stressing him. It's not like, I don't think he or she has malicious intent by bringing this massive weight off their shoulders. I think what they're trying to do is have somebody to bounce that off of and have somebody like reassure them that things are going to be okay. And that things do get challenging, and they just want somebody to make them feel seen at times. It's not like, I don't think they feel good by expressing this anger or this frustration out on anyone. Like at least I can think back on times, like especially when I was younger, where I would just like, I don't know that I'm one to lash out much, truly, but like I would say something and I would regret it, and it's like I have the empathy for them to say, I could give that back to them and just, okay, this argument is on, or whatever you want to say, or I can have the not the sympathy,
right,
but the empathy to say, what's going on, or like, do you want to rephrase that? Because I know that's not what you meant.
Right. Did you grow up with any brothers?
No, I have one older sister.
Older sister. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of brothers, but not by blood.
I was very blessed, and it's one of the things in this life that I am ultimately the most grateful for was having a younger brother. And I seriously remember like certain times, like we would just start acting from a place of emotion with one another. Like we'd get fed up, we'd have friends around, whatever it was. And
nothing like a good sibling rivalry.
That's what I'm saying, man. And like it 100% leveled my brother up. He always hung out with my older friends. He was always trying to keep up with us.
Right.
And
it's a cool dynamic.
Now he's a fucking animal. I mean, the kid's an animal. And, but you know, we would just, I think that's something that just really clicked for me in the fact that when men act from act or speak or what have you, from a place of emotion, we lose. And I learned it at a very young age with my younger brother, because we'd get emotional, we'd get heated, or we'd come from a place of emotion, and it would just end up in a fight, you know? And the harsh reality is, like, when you're fighting your brother, when you're fighting family, nobody comes out a winner. I mean, don't get me wrong, my brother definitely came out a winner a couple times.
Definitely one or few.
Like a couple, and I'm sure I did too, but
I see what you mean.
You know, it's just like, it was such like a critical thing. And another thought around family and our dynamic growing up, my brother and I, that I've thought a lot about recently and definitely been thinking on in a way to vocalize. Something that my father did when raising us was he very much like, my father was not one of the guys that, like, he was a roughneck. You know, we grew up in we were all outdoorsmen. Some people might use the word redneck. We weren't redneck. We were outdoorsmen. And, but something my father, like, I think everybody as a kid remembers, like, there's something that your dad would call you when you were acting up or whatever it was. My father would call us pussies.
Okay.
And it's something that, like, sounds comical. It sounds like I'm just, pussy, whatever.
Yeah.
But I remember it, and it sticks with me to this day, man, because when my brother or I were acting in an emotional way or in a feminine manner about something, he would call us out and basically be like, you're being little cowards, you're being pussies.
Yeah.
And I think, like, dude, like, so many men out there just need that guy to be around, or that brotherhood to be around, where guys are willing to tell you when you're acting like a pussy.
Yeah. No, I think that's essential.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Not that, like, it should be used on everything, but like somebody to call you out when you are not doing what you should be doing, or you're acting like a bitch. You're acting like,
the term is certainly, for the audience, the term is definitely interchangeable. Like, it doesn't, you don't literally have to call everyone a pussy, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, man, like, or, and this is something too, is like, a lot of times, and this is what I've found with like brotherhood, is you surround yourself with the right guys, and they'll call you out in a scenario where you are doing all the right things in order to see you level up. Where it's like,
talk more on that.
You get under, you get under a bench press and you're benching some serious weight, and the guys around you are like, dude, are you done
warming up yet, bud?
That's right, or like you're gonna put some plates on.
There's always more weight, I guess.
That's what I'm saying. And that kind of stuff, man, that kind of banter among men is how, like, empires have been built on that banter.
Yeah. Even like just competitive drive between like employees, or like whatever you want to call it, or teammates, having that group of men together, I think definitely drives each other to compete and to even like a sibling rivalry. Like, I'm sure you got better at things because you're like, I will not lose to my little brother again in this game, no matter how silly that game was at the time. I'm sure, athletically, playing tic-tac-toe, whatever it was, you're like, no, little bro's going down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But it made you both better. And I think that's 1,000%. Like, you obviously love them at the end of the day, but you're going to compete on that, whatever it is at that time.
And my younger brother and I, we're extremely close. And, my brother's an animal. And when I say that, I actually like mean it in a very literal sense. You've seen, like, I go on the hunting trips annually. Yeah. My brother is so in tune with his innermost primal part of his brain. and he knows how to channel it in the proper way. And he's just like spending time with him in the woods is, I swear to you, like watching an animal. I mean, he's listening for, and just what I've picked up and learned from him over the years, just going out in the woods with him is insane. It's just such a beautiful process and skill set that he has 100% mastered. Really? I may have mastered marketing, business, like fitness, what have you. This kid has mastered hunting and the outdoors, and being around a true master of that craft is a really cool experience for any man. And I'll tell you a funny story. So about 3 years ago, I moved down to South Carolina, left everything I knew behind, had never been to South Carolina, came here for business opportunity and kind of like just a life reset that I needed.
Yeah.
My first year after moving down here, I traveled back home for Christmas, for the holidays. And I get into my hometown, wherever we're driving around, my dad and I, and I'm running in and out of the gas station real quick to grab something. And I run into somebody and they're like, hey, like, how's the butcher doing? Like, oh, good. You know, just like shrugging it, like, yeah, he's good. Yeah. Like, just, I'm like, what was that all about? And I'm walking out by a gas pump. Somebody's like, hey, what's going on, Colden? Good to see you're back in town, you know, yada, yada, yada. And like, what's the butcher up to today? I'm thinking to myself, like, what the fuck is this? And I get back and I'm like, talking to everybody. I'm like, who the fuck is the butcher? And my dad looks over at me and goes, you haven't heard. He's like, that's what the entire town has nicknamed your brother.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm literally sitting there as the older brother, I'm thinking to myself, like, that is the dopest fucking nickname you could ever receive. Like, because he kills so much like game. He's
just out there.
And he's just constantly out there just butchering.
Carving it up.
Dude, I'm like, dude, I would kill to have a town call me the butcher.
That is priceless. You can't buy that nickname.
No,
right
you
there.
seriously
awesome.
can't.
What?
Oh, that was just like, it was such a cool experience. But he's just, man, watching him butcher a deer too.
So
like,
what does he hunt normally? I know you've been out a few times.
Just honestly, like, we grew up hunting everything. Like, there's a season for whatever. Like, I went up for Christmas and we went out partridge hunting and I shot a partridge. Huh. Also called grouse. It's an interchangeable name.
I don't know. There's like, so where is that in
upstate New York?
In New York. Okay.
Upstate. Pretty much in the middle of the Adirondack Mountains.
Right.
Which is,
nice, man.
to my knowledge, the largest state park is it in the U.S.? I'm not sure.
Yeah, you tell me.
Yellowstone's got to be pretty big. All I know is it's very large, or at one point it was considered
just like
huge.
A massive, like, you're not near any like cities.
Absolutely.
There's nothing. You're just out in the wilderness.
Yep.
Yeah, there's no
it's
paved roads.
It's
going near your tree stand.
It's such a refresh, and I have intentions too with that the Underground Kings club that I run. Mm-hmm. I am logistically working with my brother actually to hopefully I would say, like, if I were to be realistic, 3 to 5 years time, establishing the infrastructure to eventually host the Underground Kings club members for an annual limited hunting retreat.
Sounds epic.
Yeah. I mean, like, just guys, there's no feeling like it, man. Like, being in the woods with 4 or 5 other guys, everybody's growing their beards out. Everybody, you know, we all like are just burning 6,000, 10,000 calories a day. Yeah. And you're just in the mountains, far away from civilization, and you are hunting and stalking prey.
I love it. Have you, like, I'm sure you've put a good amount of thought into that. Like, where did that thought come from? Or you're like, you know, this is the essence of masculinity. It would be a great bonding moment, something like that? Or kind of tell me your thought process or what your vision would be.
That's a brilliant question. I grew up hunting. My father was actually a state fish and game warden. Really? Yeah. So
he knew every law. He knew all the good spots probably.
And he's like, he grew up an outdoorsman, and that's why he went into that profession. Is he's like, if I can on a day-to-day spend my time in the woods around the kinds of people that enjoy the outdoor activities, that's what I want to do.
That's great.
And so I grew up from a very young age shooting guns and going hunting and fishing and what have you. And it's funny because in like high school, I wasn't super into waking up at 3:30, 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah, it was almost like a burden.
Yeah, it felt like it was very much a burden. And mind you, and I've had this conversation with my father and with my brother, because they've seen the new revival of passion I've had for it in my older years.
Right.
And they're like, Colden, like you just had a lot going on at that time of your life.
I see.
I was a 3-sport athlete.
Oh.
I was playing basketball, baseball, and soccer.
Yeah.
In the off season in December, I was out on the pond playing hockey, and
Nice.
I was in the gym lifting weights, and I was chasing girls like there was no tomorrow.
There's no time for anything else at that
Yeah,
point.
I mean, I was just like suffocated with activities and like chase.
Yeah.
So
It takes a lot of energy.
yeah, I hadn't really come to the full fruition of a man. I was definitely just a boy running around that just wasn't quite.
It takes time to mature for real.
Exactly. And so it wasn't until I moved down here and I started traveling back. After my second year living here, I decided, I'm going to go back for hunting season. I'm going to spend 2 weeks in the woods with my brother and my father.
I like how you were willing to immerse yourself in it, not just go for like a few days. You're like, no, we're going on a trip for 2 weeks.
100%.
Yeah,
it had to be like, I knew for myself and my brain and the way I'm wired and just my innermost ambition, I knew I needed time to cool off.
It's a great like reset, and I think you like learn to really like dive into those things and have the patience and think through all your preparation and all that sort of thing, and just get out there and give it your best shot. Whatever. Do you know what you ended up hunting that time?
So the annual trips that I do, and ideally what I would hope to be one of the annual trips for the club guys in the future would be whitetail deer.
Awesome.
There is nothing like hunting whitetail deer in the mountains of the Adirondacks. Like, I mean, it is just, you are expending countless calories, countless hours, strenuous up and down hills and climbing. And it is just like an experience like no other. You are truly immersed in the wilderness. It's not like, okay, we're going to like park here and then we're going to go sit on this field over a corn pile.
Yeah.
It's like, no, see that like peak up there? See the next one above it? Yeah, you need to work your way up to that first peak, hunt your whole way up, and then get to that next peak. Or in some cases where like we'll sometimes sit in the morning and try and like sit and catch them on their runways in between bedding and feeding zones. Okay. And so like there was one morning when I was up there this past trip where we went into my brother's hunting camp. No cell service, no power. It's fucking awesome. Like oil lantern, like really? Go out, chop the wood, put it in the fire stove, like whatever. Yeah.
So you guys are camping out overnight, or you go back to a lodge or something?
We typically, most nights we're just going back to my brother's house. Yeah. But we have that hunting camp that we love to go to as well. And we went into the hunting camp, we stayed the night, we get to the trailhead, we then hike in, and when we get to kind of like up to the point, this is 4:30 in the morning probably. In the realm of that, we got
an early start.
Headlamps on, and we had just done it all day the day before, 16 hours of hunting or whatever it was. And my brother's basically like pinning on this like GPS thing that we use. He's pinning the spot that I'm going to go sit, and it is straight up. And he says, you kind of need to be there within like 45 minutes to an hour. No, because that sun's gonna come.
I've found too, like being in the mountains, you're like, oh, that's like right there, like I can see it. But it's like you got to go down a bit, and then on your way up, like your pace is like so slow, even if you're pushing to get there in a certain amount of time.
There's definitely something to be said too about like once you all depart and you're heading to wherever you need to go to do whatever it is that the objective is you've set out for the day and how you're going to hunt the land. Yeah. There's something to be said about walking through the woods with nothing but a shallow and. I mean, my brother's got this nice headlamp. I got this old janky one that like I found in the cupboard. Right. So I got like this tiny little beam of light. I've got my loaded 308 rifle, and I'm walking through the woods, and I can basically see about as far as my toes come in front of my foot. Yeah.
Like
on the ground. And like, crazy, like snap of a twig and your brain immediately goes bare.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the only thing it could be, right?
Yeah. Dude, your heart rate's at like 190.
So quiet. So even the smallest noise sounds like a lot more at that time too, I'm sure.
It is the ultimate experience. And the beauty of it too, man, is I have had some of my greatest days in the woods getting to experience someone else in the hunting party killing a deer.
Really?
Like, it doesn't have to be you, man.
I see.
It's that roll. There is nothing like rolling out to one of your guys in the party and they've killed an animal. You can hear on the radio when they radio it in, they're like, you can hear it in their voice that they're fired up. Yeah. Like, you want to see people fired up. That's it, man. And this past trip I went this past year, I shot my first rack buck. It was a 6-pointer with my muzzleloader. And then like 5 days later, shot definitely my biggest rack, a 10-point buck with my rifle. And it was like an insane scenario. These two bucks were chasing each other. He just comes in, and then he comes and he hits the opening and he stops, and they're behind me. And I got to like get up, and I'm shaking like a leaf, man.
You're like, oh,
I'm like,
here we go.
Getting up, get the scope up on him. I find his front shoulder area. I'm like, okay, there's a lot of brush in the way. And I'm shaking so bad, and my scope's fogging up. So I got to reach over, grab this stick to get like a rest.
And
then I just squeeze it off. And as soon as I squeeze it off, that full adrenaline hits. It depends on the person, like your personality. My brother struggled, especially in his younger years. He'd get that adrenaline spike and he couldn't control it in the moment.
Sure.
Me, I've always had like, my adrenaline will kick in for sure, but I don't lose control of my body until the objective is finished, until I've squeezed off that trigger.
I feel like I'm that way with things too. Just like,
I believe that.
I tend to like use it to my advantage and almost find comfort there and achieve the objective. And then it's like, all right, whatever happens after.
Holy shit, fired up.
Yeah, exactly.
I watched that, but again, it's like, that was like the experience of a lifetime for me. And it was just me and my younger brother that day.
Really?
And
the butcher carve it up?
The butcher, oh yeah. Fuck yeah. That I shot at that buck, and I knew this was like this was like a buck that I was going to be this was a big one.
Yeah.
And I watched it tear through the woods, and I watched it just face plant right like 30 yards in front of me, man. And my fucking heart's pounding. I couldn't even approach it. I couldn't even walk up to check how many points it had until my brother got there.
Really?
Because I was like, man, I was so fired up. And then he comes, it's like hugging and shit. It was just,
that's great.
You can't express that. And I want, again, it's not until my later years that I get super serious about learning about it and getting into it with my brother. And after even the first trip, when, I shot 2 does that year. Fill my brother's freezer. I don't bring any of it back. I just, here's some meat for the family. But after that, the experiences I've had, I recognize that a lot of the truly what I would consider masculine men that I have come to meet down here since moving have gone their entire lives without ever experiencing that, and may not even know that experience is out there for them. And I really want to, just a part of what the Underground Kings Club will do. I'm hoping to have some kind of a connection and bring guys into that space.
That sounds so cool. I've never hunted, but I definitely want to. I think it's something I'm going to add, like, to me, as just like the way that I'm built. I'm not going to be fighting until I'm 50, obviously. Like, I'll do that until my time is due or done. But I think like taking on something like hunting would be like right up my alley.
I think so. Well, based on just like our conversations and your personality, like, without a doubt.
And I think it's so cool that you went out with your brother, and you can go with anyone, but to me, like, those are the relationships you build. It's like the people that you have a sense of struggle with, or you're, or just going out and doing fun things. Like, I'm sure like dove hunting and stuff is like, obviously, more like less natural. Like, you just like get the doves to fly up and you shoot your shotgun, you get a couple down. But like doing something like that is like, you're in the trenches, you're up at 3-4 in the morning, you're out there in the cold, probably. You're
frigid,
waiting on nature.
Frigid cold, man.
I could only imagine.
Oh, it takes at least a month to even like recover.
Really?
And my brother, he does it the whole season like that. He's a madman.
Does he?
He's a madman. But
that's pretty cool, man.
There's something also to be said, I think, about, and another real core proponent of that I hope to bring to the club as well, is there's something to be said about going out and 7 days on end, no one's killed an animal. And then finally, like, we're talking cumulative within the hunting party, tens of thousands of calories burned with nothing to show for it. And then somebody puts one down, and that celebration and the respect for the animal as well is a core proponent of that.
For sure.
Coming out to the person, celebrating it, getting the animal out, butchering it.
Yeah.
And I can literally picture it in my head. And that's why I just know it's going to be a reality, is bringing club guys in,
Yep.
going out on a hunt, 7 days, nothing to show for it. Boom, deer goes down, bring it back, butcher it, and we're all sitting around a dining room table eating.
There's the vision.
That animal that we've harvested together.
That's incredible right there. I love the idea of that concept, and I think a lot of people would want to have some sort of experience like that. That's so cool.
I don't really talk much about like the hunting stuff, and
yeah,
I think a lot
it
of
applies to
it absolutely does, and it's definitely like part of my bigger vision.
Yeah,
like incorporating it, but I think the I don't want to misconstrue or miscommunicate what my vision is for that, because it's one of those things that's like, it would be very hard for me to record a video in this studio in this environment and
like, let's do a hunting.
Even take myself
seriously. This is a hunting club or something. Yeah, no. And you're saying like it would be
more so
like,
just the environment.
Yeah.
You know,
like if you're out in the field and you're doing, you're preparing for a hunt, you're like, hey, I'd love to do this with some guys eventually. Like,
precisely.
I see what you mean. The environment.
It's so important to me too. It's like, again, and I think that's like I just had a conversation with a friend of mine and a mentor of mine 2 days ago. We went to Ko Sushi in Market Common, and
Nice.
We were talking about masculinity and manhood. He said, he asked me, he said, Colden, like, what is it that you believe makes a man great? And I had a very simple answer, and it's very much derived from that book that I recommended to you. I believe that being a great man is not only being good at being a man, but not only being a good man, but being good at being a man.
So what is in your mind, and I'm curious to talk deeply about this if you want, but what does being good at being a man mean to you? Or what are some people that have kind of shown you that, or that you aspire to be similar to, like, or similar to in a way?
I think I was very blessed to grow up in the countryside, in a very small rural community. And I think that the majority of men that I grew up around were good at being men. A lot of them were not necessarily good men.
I see.
You see, that's the dichotomy at play, is the fact that I grew up in that environment, in that ecosystem. It's a very dog-eat-dog world in rural United States, I think. And I think that communities are much more tight-knit, and they come together and help one another more. But there's also that when you're raised in the country like that, and you're raised as an outdoorsman, there is absolutely a rugged fiber that is sewn and woven into every fabric of your personality and your character when you grow up in a place like that.
I see.
Like good at being a man, it can be the simplest of things, honestly. It's being capable of protecting and providing, being capable of being a good man, even in the worst of circumstances.
Okay.
And so you may be a good man, and you're doing the right things, you're filling a masculine frame partially as a good man.
So you're saying, or would you say that you need to have both? Ideally to have both? In
order to fully fit the frame, I believe that you absolutely must have both. Right. I think that it's going back to, there is no virtue in refraining from that which you are incapable of doing. Yeah. And it's like, well, I'm virtuous because I protect and provide. Like, I'm a good man. I'm virtuous. I protect and I provide for my family, and I do what I'm supposed to do. It's like, okay, I'm happy to hear that, and I see that, and I recognize that and respect it. However, what happens when I take everything that you know to be true about your surroundings, your environment, society, and I turn it to complete chaos?
Right.
What happens if the grid goes down? And I'm not talking like necessarily like, you could take it to that extreme, like doomsday type shit.
Sure. I see what you mean.
There's a lot of, honestly, like little mishaps that can happen in someone's life, and someone who's a good man is all of a sudden put in a circumstance or an environment or faced with a situation where being a good man isn't enough.
Yeah, it's almost like being like a nice guy. Like you may be like chivalrous in a sense, but when shit hits the fan, you're not ready to take action, or you don't have a group of guys that are on the same page as you, that know how to think for themselves, that know how to, develop a plan have already prepared for a certain event to happen, stuff like that. I think it's key to, plan ahead in a sense if you can, and have that group of guys that you're already on the same page with, that you've already, trained with in the gym, or that you've already rebuilt a business or rebranded a business, or kind of like gone through things with, to connect with them, before another event happens, and you kind of have that base to bounce things off of. Because if you're going back to your girlfriend or your wife with all these problems, she's like, no, that's what I came to you for, to provide that stability, to provide that protection. So you Absolutely. Need to get with your gang of friends and, set out on a vision for the future.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And it's like, I guess, one last metaphor to really kind of try and drive home what I mean when I say the difference between just being a good man and being good at being a man is like, a good man, I would very much argue, a good man would protect and provide for his family. Maybe that means, in today's society, maybe that means going and working a job that maybe you don't even like, in order to financially put food on your family's table. Okay, great. I could say there's a lot of virtue in that, and I have the utmost respect for a man that is willing to do that. Now, let me throw something out there. What happens when you go to the grocery store and there isn't meat on the shelves? What happens when you go to the grocery store and all the canned goods are gone?
Right.
What happens when it becomes dangerous or a volatile environment in your community for some unbeknownst reason, and it's no longer even safe to be traveling to and from the grocery store without being capable of violence? And it's like, well, I think about my brother and where he's at and how he's set up too. Is like, dude, I could go up there and blow up the supermarket, like erase it from existence.
I was not expecting that. Yeah,
and
no.
we would continue to be eating meat.
Yeah,
there would be whatever we need on the table.
Right.
We'd just spend more time in the woods collecting it.
For real. Yeah. More great experiences.
If you ask my brother, he's probably like, dude, that sounds like paradise.
He's like, damn. Yeah, it sounds like a good idea.
Seriously, man.
No, I think like, and kind of on that point, it's like, I think you can, to me, being good at being a man is like always taking steps forward, whether that's like improving and developing yourself, to become a better boyfriend or husband, or just friend or brother or father, whatever it may be. And also, like elevating your wealth and your stability in that sense too. Like, I don't think, like, I think a good man can settle in a job and be comfortable there. But I think that being good at being a man is having the understanding that most jobs, they can fire you at any time, or stuff outside of your control can affect that job. So you need to have something on the side, or a skill that you're working on, so that even if this, entire company or this plan doesn't go as planned, then you can still transition that into something and still have that, have that financial stability, or continue to improve your lifestyle because you're developing yourself internally, or you're developing your network with other guys that are on the same page.
Absolutely. I'm glad we delved into that conversation, because that's definitely, I think, something that we both, you speak.
Is there is there anything that if somebody is willing, or I guess willing is probably a better word, but like trying to trying to become good at being a man, as opposed to your typical, or still valuable but more typical being a good man, what is something, or maybe a few things, or I guess trying to get to your favorite or the best thing that you would recommend to somebody to be good at being a man?
I think like the first step that literally anyone can make is that you should have some form of physical training regimen. You should be training to be stronger and capable of violence if need be.
Right.
If they're looking at some other ways to like get very early wins, let's say you've grown up let's say everything I just said about where I grew up sounds completely foreign to you.
Okay.
And you've grown up in an urban area, but you're training and you want to like kind of explore more of like the more on the extreme end of the spectrum.
More primal. You want to get rooted and grounded in that masculinity.
Precisely. If you're looking to like even take a very simple first step,
Okay.
I think that you should 100% learn your way around a firearm, even if it's just like watching videos. Talk to someone that you know. Like I've had 6+, probably between 6 and 10 guys fire their first firearm with me.
Yeah.
And it's always an amazing experience, and I'm never hesitant to bring them into my world of it. Mm-hmm. And I'm very strict with it. I tell guys the moment we get to the range, the moment the firearms come out, and this is how I was raised by my father, is like, listen, man, like I'm your friend here in this truck. We're going to step out of this truck. I'm going to pull some firearms out. I'm not your fucking friend. Yeah. Okay. Like we're here and this needs to be taken seriously. If you're fucking around or dicking off, I'm going to put you in your place and this is over. Right. So I love taking guys out, and I think learning your way around a firearm. And here's another really simple one, dude. Like go and like how many men our age that I have come to meet that have grown up in urban areas that don't know how to start a fire. Blows my mind.
Yeah.
That's a really simple win that guys can get. Like that watch a YouTube
huge.
video.
Yeah.
And please, I'm begging you, if you do decide to do this, if you have to, whatever, please don't like go to the gas station or the grocery store and buy like the kindling bundle or whatever.
Right.
Like go in the woods and
get your hands dirty.
That's right, man. Like figure out like, okay, how do you start a fire? Like for instance, in upstate New York, if we're out on a hunt or we're out, just on a little exploration trek, my brother and I, or whoever I'm with, we know to get a fire started very quickly, the first thing we need to grab on our route is look for birch bark. Yeah. White birch, it's very oily, and the bark is very oily, and it'll act as an ignition source. Now, I live in South Carolina now. I don't know about you, but I don't see many white birch around here, right?
Not much.
So it can be as simple as like just a quick Google search and just knowing like, okay, what are some ignition sources that I can find in the wilderness? Yeah. Go out and try and find it, and then try and start a little fire.
Yeah.
Like that's also, again, it's such a simple win, but it's one that like.
That's huge. And I think just showing that you're like willing and able to like kind of like weather the storm or just go out in nature and like whatever comes your way, whatever happens, but you're going to be good because, you've been there before, or you're at least, confident in your ability to take care of whatever happens out there. Like I did this one day where I was just like, all right, I'm going to go out and not eat anything through the whole day and just spend my day in nature, build a fire, like basically like set up camp and stuff like that. I think I had like a shovel, like a little hatchet, and I had one block of fire starter and a pack of matches, and that was my set. So luckily I brought those luxuries, but it just felt like I was like, wow, like I should be doing this more often, or like I was like I want to bring more people out and like stay overnight and like set up hammocks and tents and like just post up here, because it was so cool to be out in nature, like you said, literally like dug a hole, because there's no like fire pits where I was at. Yep. You just dig in a little bit, set up a little perimeter, clear the brush, and have yourself a fire. It was awesome. Yeah. it was way more enjoyable than I would have even thought, which is cool. Yeah.
Becoming good at being a man like sounds like this super daunting task, especially like I am 100% like I'm an advocate for taking it to that advanced level and being ambitious with it, like getting to the point where you're capable of going out and harvesting an animal, butchering it yourself, putting it on the table, like fully providing for yourself if need be.
Right. Like start where you're at kind of thing.
Yeah, start where you're at, man. And there's so many just little micro steps. Like go on Amazon and buy a leather making kit and learn how to like process hides from an animal and do something. Like just there's so many activities.
I haven't heard much about that. Can you maybe explain like?
I haven't even done it, man.
That's like, another step on the list. Yeah,
that's like another one. The reason I mentioned
it's a great like challenge, like craftsmanship, or just like like really just delving into the hunting and like living that, aligning it with your whole lifestyle, I guess.
Think about things that you use, and I think any men looking to improve in this realm should be thinking about this regularly, as I do.
Yeah,
is think about products or things that you use on a day-to-day basis, and then research and figure out how you could make those things from scratch.
Right.
Like, okay, I wear pants and a shirt and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, it'd be pretty cool to know how to like tan a hide and like make like a deer skin hood.
That is neat.
Or something.
Is neat. Yeah, I think like I'm a big fan of like natural things, like even just like natural like fibers. Like this is like a hemp shirt, or like you can use like linen or like cotton and stuff like that. But having those like natural things, I feel like just helps me feel like more grounded and like less. You're not wearing like I'm sure I have some on,
like
but
frequency blocking.
Yeah, like plastic and stuff, like coating your body and seeping into your skin or whatever. But yeah, I think it's cool. And also, I absolutely agree. I'm sure you recognize this, but like the when you said having some kind of physical fitness, a sense like that, and to me, it's evolved more into like martial arts as well. I think just those practices are what teaches you that you know just this law of the universe, this cause and effect. Like if you do practice, if you keep showing up, if you train hard, rest right, and eat well, your body is going to transform. It's not a matter of if, but when. So having that persistence to continue at a practice and kind of work your way towards mastery, even if you're at an advanced level, there's always so much more to learn and so much more to teach others. I think through these practices is how we kind of like purify our souls and like become better at being ourselves and like learning ourselves through these simple practices of going to the gym every day or going on a walk, whatever it may be. I think there's just so much value in that foundation that to me kind of perpetuates into everything that you do.
Bit of a out of left field question for you here. With the martial arts and things like that, whether it be in martial arts or outside of martial arts, have you experienced being punched in the face?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Outside of martial arts?
Oh, outside? No.
No? Okay, well, that's a good thing.
I'm pretty good at either diffusing situations or I don't think there's a need to fight, like in most cases. I feel like I'm in a lot of like positive environments also. I don't tend to put myself in situations where that would need to occur, but I feel confident in my abilities nowadays, especially. But I don't think that needs to take place outside of a pre-fame, a controlled, in some cases, environment.
Right.
Will the day come?
Never know.
Never know. Gotta stay ready.
That's right. I mean, I would have picked that up. And I think we have, even in the short amount of time we've spent with one another, I think we both picked that up on the first day when I mentioned to you. I was like, you definitely have this very like stoic presence. We project and preach a lot of the same things. I think we have a lot of the same, very, very similar foundational character blocks.
Sure.
And then of course there's just like, everybody's a little different. Like me, I mean, I have a threshold for me, and like it doesn't. Again, I'm big and a big advocate for avoiding that fight scenario as much as you possibly can. I certainly have a threshold that might be lower than others, where it's like there's only so much disrespect I'm willing to take before I'm gonna verbalize, and it's like basically the extreme of like you want to say that again, or you want to rephrase that.
No, I mean things could definitely escalate, and I think it's
the problem is when you
I
ask.
haven't had to really put hands. Like I remember, like I think I'd like wrestle, like kind of like wrestle around or throw punches, like when I was like really young. But like I remember I hurt this kid really bad, and I was like, damn, I should probably not do this much more.
Yeah, I hurt a kid pretty fucking bad last year, actually.
Yeah.
It was just one of those circumstances where, it's not something necessarily I'm proud of. Did it put a smile on my face for 3 days? Absolutely. Like, I think like
I
just
get that.
a lot of like past rage had built up, and it was just like, it got unleashed. And what made me feel good about it was, and why I was smiling ear to ear, it wasn't because, I fulfilled this villain arc complex that I had. It was actually genuinely, it was because I got my moment to be violent, and it was justified.
Right.
Had it not been justified, had I started it, that would have been an issue for me.
For sure. Yeah. Like if you're using violence and it's not justified, that's like cowardice in a way. Yeah. But if it, there is a certain line, like people watch movies and they're like, all right, this is the hero of the movie. He's going to go kill the bad guy. Like it's justified, like stuff like that.
Justification for sure. It's a big deal for me for sure.
Yeah.
it was a simple confrontation too. You know, it was just it was very quick. It came to an end quite quickly, but it was just drunk asshole. I basically
I feel like it happens a lot in those scenarios.
A much less nice way was like, you want to repeat that?
Yeah.
In a much less nice way. It was much more phrased as like,
what the fuck are you talking about?
It was directed towards someone who was working for me, actually.
Really?
That I had gone out with to have some celebratory drinks. We had worked really hard for a long time.
I think there is something to standing up for others. I feel as though part of stepping into that true masculinity and being good at being a man is like protecting others.
Absolutely.
And like standing up for them, standing up for or providing for the people that aren't able to do it for themselves. So
I genuinely think had he been barking up my tree, I probably would have just gone my own direction.
Right.
I think he just caught me on just a bad day, and he was barking up my buddy's tree.
Yeah.
And my buddy was really not trying to have it and was trying to avoid it, and he kept going. And it was as simple as like, instead of saying, hey, you want to like rephrase that? It was more like, shut your fucking mouth and know your place.
Right. Yeah.
And then he just decided to throw a punch, and it was over.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, I forget where we were at beforehand.
Yeah, I think we were talking on like what makes a good man a man good at being a man, and like some of those things of having that stepping into a fitness routine or developing yourself in that manner. Martial arts on top of it.
You'd been punched in the face. That's right.
Right.
I think, but you have been, I'm sure, in martial arts at some point in time.
Yeah, we spar every week.
There's definitely like something to be said about that as well, because I think that so many people, including myself in my younger years, it's like we'd get in scrums. Usually it was in sports. We'd be playing soccer. It gets a little.
I've seen it time and again. Yeah.
And just it gets on the brink of a fist fight.
Yeah. And
I think at that young, ignorant age, I was so eager to push it to that point. I was like, I want this to break out in a fist fight.
I see.
But it was out of ignorance, because at that age, at that point in my life, I had yet to be hit in the face. And then like college came around even later on in life. Like, I have certainly taken my fair share of bare knuckle hits to the face.
Yeah.
And it is a learning experience every fucking time,
you learn
man.
Something new.
It's like, I really don't want that to happen again.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, I try to relay that to like just life lessons. Like, getting punched in the face can be physical or metaphorical, or even the words that somebody may say to you. And it's not always the ones that, it's not the power of the punch they throw or the power of the words, it's how well it lands. So if somebody says something to you and it doesn't land at all, you brush it off your shoulder, they miss the punch. But if they throw something and it lands and it hits you in your heart or messes with your head, that's when you know there's something to change or something to evolve or learn from that process a lot more.
Going back to the brotherhood conversation and like a rising tide raises all ships kind of conversation of like when one of your male comrades is like, hey man, like, oh, you're looking a little squishy, dude. It's if that bugs you, man, if that verbal hit lands, as you're saying, if it lands, it probably means you're supposed to be doing something about it.
Yeah.
It probably means something needs to be done. Like they've hit you in an insecure spot, and you're insecure. Yeah. People think insecurity is just like this blanket emotion. It's like you're insecure for a reason.
Right.
That's simply.
It's almost like not something. Like, sure, you don't like. I don't promote bullying, but I promote like checking your friends to like. Sometimes that tough love is what they need, and they need to hear it in a different way than how they've been, kind of like guarding themselves, or others have been guarding them from healing or hearing that reality or that truth. And I think like the truth will set you free. Like, if you're not willing to face your fear or face the reality of some circumstances, then it's going to be at your own detriment. So just having the courage or, I guess the courage to even take the next step, whether that's a small step or not.
Jacob here just literally just started getting in the gym as of a week and a half, 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks ago.
Keep on showing up, man.
I told him, man, we had a pretty good. He's good because he takes constructive and critical criticism well. And obviously, if you're going to operate around me, you have to be used to it.
Yeah, dude.
But
it's all good.
Yeah, I was like, he's like, yeah, man, like, do you have any work or stuff I can do, whatever? Like, I said, get in the gym, because I promise you, 4 years down the road, you're going to regret not starting today.
For sure. No, I think like to me, fitness is the foundation. It's not like I don't want to be like jacked just for my own good. Like, who am I if I'm just like a strong guy or I can run? Like, I want to do it to, you know, be at my best and have good energy and inspire others. It's not like to me, it's more of a foundation than like the end all be all, you know what I mean? But I think it is just so essential to optimize your life in that way.
And inspiring others really is a big proponent of that. Like playing as a masculine role model. I mean, Jacob, real quick again, like, would you have, and speak up so hopefully it comes through here, but would you have gone to the gym and followed my advice had it not been me, or if I was a fat fuck?
Most likely not.
I think you're leading from the front with that. It's not like a recommendation that you're not already obviously committed to.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the same in like any discipline though. It's like, you know, I'm so sick of like talk, you know, like
right.
Talk is cheap. I love that saying, man. It's so iconic. True. Talk is cheap. Show me the results. Show me what you have to show for it. Or I really don't feel like entertaining that conversation. Like so many in business, I face that time and time again, man. I've never been like a big business flexor or this, that, and the other thing. I just you can look like, I don't know, like you want to see stuff. I can show you what I've built. That's all I can do.
Yeah, exactly.
Also part of the reason I've been piss poor at like documenting my journey. Like I feel like for so long I was like, looking back, I wished I had press record more when I was operating this thing out of like my parents' basement and had like didn't have nickels to rub together.
No, it's true. And like, you just never know what things are going to turn into. So it's hard to, like, obviously you had a vision for what you were looking to create, but it's hard to see like how it would turn out. And then like from that perspective, wanting to look back and see like, what were those key moments? Cause it's like hard to like record. And like, sometimes you don't know like when those key moments are going to come up and stuff like that. But I agree. For some reason, I feel as though like a lot of times, like I told you, I cleared all of the stuff off my phone. And it's like, sometimes I want to look back at those things, but I also feel at the same time, like I really want to be defined by my vision for the future, as opposed to looking back and like even just limiting myself on those things. So while I do value like creating and documenting where I'm at now on my journey, and I probably wish I did more of that, I also find that there's something in, you know, no, like you've said, no rear view mirror. Like you're just eyes are forward, you know, whoever's in the car with you, you're just rolling that way until, you know,
to hit something or
until you run out of gas or take pit stop. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Well, listen, man, I really appreciated this conversation. I think this is definitely only the beginning. I'm sure I'll be having you on again. Maybe I'll bring the setup down to Charleston for a day or something.
That would be cool. We'll plan something. Where can folks find you, and what would they want to find you for? Find me if you want to change your life. My name is, or my username is @GrowWithCrego on Instagram. If you don't already, make sure you follow Colden, not only on Instagram, but also on YouTube. Is that is a different username there or same thing? I think it's just Colden Blades. Colden Blades. Yeah. Appreciate you having me on. This is a great conversation. Can't wait to hit the gym here in a minute. Awesome, man. Hell yeah. We got a day ahead of us. So let's go.